All right, let's get started. First of all, I wanted to say that we're very happy about the strong interest in the IFC Studio. We have done the same webinar in German last week, and both sessions together reached around 60 registrations in total. Obviously, most of those registrations were for the German session since we're a German company and most of our clients and our network is German, but still we didn't want to neglect our English audience, so this is for you. The audience is very mixed. We had participants from the client side, but also from the planning side, people who are already LASM users, as well as new interested people. So it's a diverse group, and the good thing is that the IFC Studio comes with a wide range of possible use cases, which means that it's genuinely interesting for very different groups, and I'm sure there will be something exciting for everybody. So let's jump into the agenda for today's session. Of course, we're going to introduce what the IFC Studio is and what it can be used for. We're going to take a look at the functional scope and discuss typical scenarios in which the IFC Studio can be used. And finally, I'm also going to give you an outlook on what's coming next, and then move into an open Q&A session to answer your questions. So please post your questions in the Q&A section and feel free to do so already during the presentation. For those who don't know us yet, my name is Stefan Hellwig, and with me here today is Antonia, and we're both founders of LASPIM. And our goal is to make the path to good data quality as simple as possible by starting with the information requirements on the LASPIM platform and making them available for planners for attribution and model validation. So what have we already done before the IFC Studio to accomplish this? We have developed the LASPIM platform, where all stakeholders can collaborate on the information requirements. This means that you can define what information is actually needed in your project, and from there communicate these requirements to everybody who needs them. Our platform comes already with a lot of integrations, most importantly our Revit plugin for attribution and model validation. The plugin offers support for correctly implementing the requirements, so it tells you what do I need to deliver? Does my model already meet the requirements directly in Revit? And the IFC Studio fills a similar role in our product suite, but it's focused on IFC files only. So let's dive deeper into the IFC Studio. With the IFC Studio, we are shifting the focus not only on the native model, but also to the IFC models, which opens up a whole new range of new workflows. What the IFC Studio can do in short is attribute IFC models directly in the browser and easily check the attribution. This enables the same way of working with IFC models as with the Revit plugin. And for those of you already familiar with the Revit plugin, you might notice that the interface for the IFC Studio seen here is identical with that of our Revit plugin. There are different areas of application that we're going to look at in detail in a moment. So first, as a client or someone receiving IFC models, you can use IFC Studio to quickly check the data quality. As someone without access to the native files, you can easily attribute IFC models. For example, as a fire safety specialist, you wouldn't typically work with native models, and the IFC Studio offers you an opportunity to easily fill in just the data that you are responsible for. For someone whose native software does not sufficiently support attribution or is not supported by the LASM plugins, you can still use the IFC Studio for easy attribution and validation. And the goal of the IFC Studio is to enable everyone to gain insight into and ensure the data quality of a model. Finally, how can I access the IFC Studio? It's a browser application that you can access via the LASM platform, and the models are then opened locally and not uploaded to our servers, which means that your data is secure and always just stays with you. All right, I would say let's take a look at the software. Before we look at the specific examples in detail, let's go through the basics first. We can open the IFC Studio via the sidebar navigation or by using the integrations tab. And then we are already prompted from the IFC Studio to open IFC files. We can open one or many files. In this case, we are going to use 2. And just for your orientation, this second file that we're loading is around 300 megabytes. So this might take a few seconds. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's jump into it. The IFC model consists, the IFC Studio consists of 4 different key components. First of which is the 3D viewer right here in the middle, which allows you to add models, navigate through the model, and select elements. You can also select multiple elements, adjust their visibility, stuff like that. Then on the top left-hand side, we see the IFC structure, which gives you an overview of the structure of the IFC file underneath. And you can also use this to select specific elements and isolate them. Then on the bottom left-hand side, we can see the IFC data, which means that here you can see all of the data that is already attached to a certain element. In this case, we can see, for example, the type attributes, the attributes for this specific element, and then also the different custom and standard property sets relevant for this specific element that's selected. Then most importantly, and also what we're going to focus on today mostly, is the right-hand side, the last one plugin, which allows you to interact with the data in the model based on the information requirements defined on the last one platform, and then allows you to attribute and validate the models. So let's take a closer look at the plugin interface. The plugin interface allows me to directly connect to the project requirements from the last one platform. And this means that on the last one platform, the requirements for the project must have already been defined for this to work. Here I can select exactly what I need for the model and filter out all of the requirements that I don't need right now. So within the IFC Studio, I have access to all of the different projects that I'm assigned to. And within this specific project, there are 2 different requirement catalogs. One in German, one in English. So for this model, I need the English one. In this catalog, the project phases have been defined, and it has been specified which attributes are required in which project phase. I can filter this here. For example, if we're in project phase 3, we don't have to deal with requirements from the later phases yet. Similarly, for this catalog, also use cases have been defined and assigned to the attributes. So I could now retrieve, for example, only attributes specifically needed for the use case, fundamentals, or demand planning, and then check or attribute the model accordingly. For now, I'm just going to remove this filter and ignore use cases and retrieve all of the information requirements for all use cases. In addition, for this catalog, attributes have been assigned to different disciplines, which allows me to further filter the attributes to only consider those relevant for a specific discipline model, for example. And if you want to, you can also further define user-defined categories and filter your requirements even more specifically. By doing this, the IFC Studio now knows which part of the requirements we want to consider for this specific model. This, of course, means that for all of this, we have to once define the requirements beforehand on the last one platform. But it also means that once it's been properly defined, everyone can retrieve exactly the requirements that are currently relevant to them, just at the push of a button, without each person having to search for them individually. This brings us to the overview of the different modules within the IFC Studio. So first of all, attribution. We can easily attribute IFC models directly in the browser using this. This means changing existing information, adding new attributes and property sets, and also correcting attribution. Then with the validation, we can very easily check the attribution in the model and get an overview of the model's data quality based on the retrieved requirements. The specification catalog is an additional way to navigate through the LASPM model. And the database module is going live very soon, but it's out of scope for today's webinar. So I'm going to show you how these modules are used by giving you a few examples of workflows. The first example that I'm going to walk through is for somebody without access to the native model. In this case, it's a fire safety specialist who needs to write this information into the architecture model. So in order to do this, we have to go back to the requirements section and filter the requirements specifically for the fire safety discipline. Then we want to start adding information to the model, but we want to start maybe with just one story of this model maybe, and not with the entire model itself. So we are just going to hide this for now. And then focus on just the first story. What I can do now is first of all get an overview of all of the different components inside of the model using this specification catalog. This is a catalog of all of the components that was previously defined on the platform. And here I can see which elements in the model belong to which component groups. If I want to start, for example, by adding information to the doors, I can use the specification catalog to easily select all of the doors. Let's start by adding information to these two doors, for example. So I just jump back into the attribution module, and the attribution module detects that these elements are IFC doors, and therefore it shows me the information requirement for these types of elements. For me, this means that I can see exactly which properties I need to fill in, and I can just easily do this using the plugin. If I want to check my progress during the attribution process, I can just jump to the validation module, validate all elements, and then the validation shows me, what elements are attributed correctly. Here we can see, okay, these two doors have all of the information, they're green, and then all of the red doors we still need to work on. And it also shows me, okay, what information is missing for these doors. All right, I think this is enough for this example. Let's move on to the next one. Of course, planners are not the only ones benefiting from model validation. So let's now take a look at how project owners can make use of the IFC Studio. In this example, the client receives IFC models from his planners, which of course means that the client before has specified the requirements on the platform. With the IFC Studio, the client now has an easy way to check if the model was delivered correctly. So as the client, I would probably not only want to check the fire protection elements or requirements rather, which means that I will just remove this fire protection domain and then filter my requirements for all of the different domains. I can also, again, get an overview of what kind of components we're dealing with here using the specification catalog. And I can also get an overview of, okay, are all of the elements in my model even classified? And since we have a bunch of unclassified elements for this example, I know that, okay, something has to be still done regarding the classification of these different elements. Okay, for the validation part, I think we will just use the smaller model. To make the results a bit more interesting. So I can now just check all of the different elements against the requirements on the platform and get an overview of the attribution and see, okay, what information is still missing for what elements. These validation results I can now export as an Excel file or also as an BCF file. So what do we do now about the missing information? This ties perfectly into our last use case, actually, which is to quickly fix small attribution errors from another planner without having another feedback loop. The normal way of dealing with errors in a model would be to validate the model and then communicate the validation results back to the planner. Depending on the type of information that is missing, the IFC Studio makes it possible to completely eliminate this unnecessary feedback loop. So if it is something easy like a spelling mistake, I can just fix it myself. In this example, we see that there are 4 exterior walls where there's just a fire rating that's invalid. So I can now just select these walls, jump to the attribution part, and I can see, okay, fire rating is filled in as 120, but it should be one of the 4 predefined values on the platform, and I can just easily fix this issue myself without this feedback loop. So this allows me to quickly add missing information, which can, of course, be way more efficient than sending my validation results back to the original planner. After filling in my missing values, I can then save the new IFC file. And I can also check which lines of code inside of the IFC file have been changed. And then also I can see which lines have been added. Okay. Lastly, I want to give you a quick outlook on the roadmap of the IFC Studio. So far, we have already added the BCF export since the last webinar last week, I think 2 days ago or something, we added this to further enable the workflow of using the IFC Studio for model validation. And next, we're also going to make it possible to change the IFC classes of elements to, for example, change proxy elements to easily apply the correct requirements. And the database feature, which you already saw earlier, will also be added very soon to the live servers for everybody. And this will, in essence, make it possible to transfer attributes from an IFC model to a newer version of the same model. All right, do we have any questions?
We actually have 2 questions, but I think one of them was already answered in your demonstration afterwards, which was, after attributing in the browser, can I download the modified IFC file afterwards from the platform? Okay. And I think a few seconds later you showed the download feature where I can save the IFC file, including the changes and added properties. And the second question is, which was also already touched by the last point of your presentation, is there a way to write back the filled out information from the fire safety planner back to the Revit model of the architect with the Revit plugin? Yes, the last feature in the Outlook that we presented also enables exactly this workflow. So I can not only transfer the information from one IFC model to a newer IFC model, but I can also use the Revit plugin to access the attribution that was done in the IFC Studio and then transfer it into the native model so that I also can have the fire safety information in the original architect model.
Okay.
Okay, so far we do not have any more questions. If you have one more, then now is the time for it. But otherwise, I think we can also keep it quick and short.
Yeah. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us after the webinar. And yeah, thank you all for joining, and have a nice day.